Gets me every time. Can't believe I'm able to keep my shirt on with that intro video. What's going on? It's your boy Kyle with Only Football with Kyle, rather. How are you guys doing? Happy Wednesday, hump day, day before 420, by the way, 419. Shout out to all my vitamin lovers out there. We have a little bit to talk about today. And I know some Wednesdays feel like we talk about everything on Monday and then nothing really comes out. But look, there's always something to talk about with the off season. But not only that, some stuff has emerged. Some stuff that I found interesting, and a lot of things that I would say a lot of cliffhangers from last season have been answered already this season. And I wanted to start off with one of them. There's two cliffhangers I'm referring to, but one of them was Tua. Now, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks come out and I guess come out as a high draft pick and then kind of go through this period of time where not just the franchise, but people that love football are trying to figure out where does this guy rank exactly? Is he a tier 1 quarterback? Is he a tier 2 quarterback? Can he start? Where should he be on the hierarchy of quarterbacks? Well, Tua was the guy last season. And honestly, there was a lot of talk about what Brian Dabble was able to accomplish with New York. There was a lot of talk, including me, as Kyle Shanahan needs to be coach of the year because I don't care about what anyone else did. This guy just made it to the NFC Championship game with three different quarterbacks, somehow keeping them all happy enough to play when it was their turn, with the exception of the very last pick in the draft. That guy would have been happy regardless. But the Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo balance act was one of the most impressive things I've seen as a fan. But anyway, I mention this because Mike McDaniel also deserves to be considered coach of the year. Now, we get so used to new head coaches being hired and going to different situations, and most of the time it's a bad one. I would say 95, 98% of the time, it's a bad one. Unless you have a head coach that just retired. I think, uh, what's his name? From Pittsburgh, when he handed it over to Mike Tomlin. Drawing a blank right now, but I think he ended on a pretty good note. But my point is we get so used to seeing certain teams that are just constantly kind of going from coach to coach, and the only thing that ranks them differently is how much time one team is willing to commit. Now we've seen Dallas commit for a long time to their coaches. We've seen the Raiders for a long time commit to their coaches, and then we have teams that seem to be always just kind of moving off coaches every 2 to 3 years. So we get used to coaches failing, and we get so used to it that I think when a coach comes over and succeeds, it you would think that it would we would be focused on that because it's rare, but I almost feel like we just have this finally one of these coaches worked out attitudes. Mike McDaniel worked out, and it's looking like he's going to be a great coach in the NFL. And I just feel like a good head coach has to be able to, he's got to be great at the obvious things: play calling, clock management, run the defense. Most great coaches today are offensive coaches, head coaches. We saw Vic Fangio, the best defensive coach around right now, couldn't get it done as a head coach. Mostly, I think, because we didn't have the quarterback position. But you got to be great at all those things. But then you also have to have this otherness about you, something that you can't really put your finger on. Andy Reid, kind of a goofball, kind of like that crazy uncle. We've heard a lot of ways people have, mentioned Andy Reid and what it's like playing for him. Bill Belichick, the angry guy with the cutoff sweater. Like, there's Mike Tomlin, infamously standing on the field so that kickoff return, guy, he basically tripped him. But Mike Tomlin's always been all about business, but he also has a swagger about him. He makes sure that the team has a swagger. He doesn't strip everybody from what makes them an individual, and it's all about the team. These great head coaches have something about them that just kind of stands out. And Mike McDaniel, from the jump, I thought had that personality that he's just kind of a nerd. He's kind of I would say emotionally unavailable, but at the same time, he's all emotion. Very hard to pinpoint. He says something and it's so blunt and it's so honest that you sit back and you're like, is he being sarcastic? But then he gives you these genuine eyes. Like, if you ever see one of his after halftime, he'll be like, let's say they didn't run the ball well and they gave up 20 points. They come out and they're like, what do you have to do different? He's like, well, we didn't run the ball well and we have to play better defense. And then he just gives you this genuine look, and it's like, this guy's being a smartass. Oh no, he's different. I loved Mike McDaniel, and I thought he just fit that criteria as different. But the first thing that he did when he came in is he took Tua and he escalated Tua to a point where he was basically letting everybody know, I believe in Tua, and I think great head coaches have to do that. Kyle on the mic, let's go. What's up, Ginge? Happy to have you in here. Happy hump day. Happy 419 Eve, 420 Eve. So he went out and was like, he believed in Tua. He mentioned, oh man, he's making some of, some great passes, some of the best passes I've ever seen. And that became a big story. Then Tyreek Hill says he's got one of the best balls I've ever seen. And obviously that becomes a big deal because Tyreek just was playing with Patrick Mahomes and now he's saying things like that. And it was like, one thing was obvious, okay? Because we all know Patrick Mahomes is on his own level. The team was rallying around Tua and they were letting him know that we believe in you as our quarterback moving forward. And Tua goes out there and Miami starts winning. They win week 1, they win week 2, they win week 3. Impressive win against the Ravens, I believe, in week 3. Then they go on to week 4 and they're playing Buffalo. And Buffalo from the jump was a Super Bowl favorite. And then they beat the living dog shit out of the Super Bowl defending Super Bowl champions on Thursday Night Football. And it was like, dude, okay, Buffalo's about to be a big, big piece of humble pie coming Miami's way. And the Dolphins win. The game's in Miami. Buffalo's winded. They're hot. They're dehydrated. The way Miami has constructed their stadium is that there's a shade zone. So in the 1 o'clock games, in Florida, they're 1 o'clock games. They have an entire half of the field that is shaded, and the other half of the field is not shaded. If they literally have measured it out, that Miami sideline will be around 85 degrees, 80 degrees. It's cooled down. It's got AC blowing everywhere. They got fans on the other side. It's like up to 110 degrees. And not only that, Miami's wearing their white jerseys, so they have to wear dark jerseys. The home field advantage when Miami reconstructed their stadium in 2015, I believe, it might have been a little bit after that, they specifically made it so that the opponents would have a really hot sideline. And I thought it was genius. Jin just said the Dolphins had some phenomenal weapons as well, sir. Tua can spin it, though, just vulnerable. That's why you're the best, Kyle. You look at all the little details like the shade in the field. Thanks, man. I actually can't take full credit for that. I not only did I see it on short, but when I lived in Miami, we went to a couple games and it is hot, man. It is so hot there. But they believed in Tua, and then after that week 4 game, it was like you looked at those weapons that you mentioned, Jinja. You looked at Tyreek Hill. You looked at Waddle. Uh, Obviously, I think was Gesicki still over there? I think Gesicki, yeah, was still there. He just became a Patriot. I mean, there was just so many weapons there that I mean, look, even if all you had was Tyreek and Waddle, that is so dynamic because Tyreek is the hardest person in the NFL, maybe in history to cover. Okay. And then Tua's out there slinging it and it's working. And then he's not, everyone's trying to figure it out, right? In real time, we're like, wait a minute, is Tua great? Or is this offense working? Or is or is Mike McDaniels like a really great play caller? An OG from the Kyle Shanahan tree. Not even trying to rhyme. That's just the way it's been lately. I mean, you had to put this together as a fan in real time. And the only thing I came up with, I said, hey, they got a lot of weapons. Mike McDaniel's a really good coach, but you know what? You got to give Tua some credit too, because you know what he's not doing? He's not screwing it up. And just when we're getting to the point of giving Tua that, hey man, QB1 nod, QB1 nod, the real QB1 nod, like we're not going to think about it anymore. We're not going to talk about you in any kind of quarterback competitions moving forward. Just when we're about to give him that nod, he gets injured. And I don't remember the exact order, but I believe he went out with concussion. And then I think it was 2 games later, or it might have been no. I remember. So he gets the concussion, but he continues playing in the game. He's cleared to play in the game. And then the next week it was Thursday night football and Miami was playing. I think it was the Ravens, and Tua hits his head on the concrete. And that's when you got that famous picture of his hands kind of seizing up. And we were like, "Oh no, like how was he even cleared to play in this game?" They said it was a back injury. It wasn't even a head injury. So he goes out there Thursday and it looks like, oh God, what did they do? And it becomes this big talking point, one of the big moments of the season. Every single NFL team in the middle of the week, Friday practice, had to talk about Tua and what the NFL is doing for player safety. And it was a huge deal, and it should have been. And then Tua comes back towards the end of the season and suffers another concussion. And the fact that he even came back was incredible. And they just ruled him out. They said he's going to be out for the season. So Tua leaves the season, and all we really know is that when Tua's in, the Miami Dolphins are, I don't even know if I can say really good, but they win most of their games when Tua's healthy. And you look at this guy's career and it's almost like there's a fork in the road here. And if you go left, you can, hang up the cleats. People will, respect you for your decision. Obviously, health has to come first, but at the same time, you know that your health and you're taking care of your future self. And then if you go right, you could really tap into this QB1 thing and see if there's something there. And at the same time, it's easy for us to sit back and say, "Yeah, man, take care of your health." But he just saw the quarterback that got benched so Tua could come in and win the national championship. He just saw him become the highest paid player in the NFL when Hurts is making $51 million a year and Tua's over here like he got benched for me. Now I'm not saying Tua's Hurts or anything like that, but you bet your ass Tua's saw that payday and he's like, that is supposed to be me right now, but I keep getting injured. I kept getting hurt. And you see the size thing, does it matter? Is it a little bit just unlucky that he kept getting hit in the head, or is it about his size? Well, Tua is going to have to sit down and have these hard conversations about what he wants to do. And it probably should involve family and nobody from the media. and just have an honest moment with himself, looking forward to this next year. Because if he does want to play football, I think that there is a promising season there. I really do, because of the sample size we saw last season was simple. When he's on the field, Mike McDaniel's offense works, and when he wasn't, the Dolphins didn't really work. Okay, so Tua did have to think about it. So he had to answer this question to reporters on Wednesday, which this was today. He The Dolphins quarterback recalled the difficult period in which he weighed both his health and his future. He said, "Yeah, I think I considered it for a time," Tungavailoa said, having sat down with my family. I haven't read this yet, so there you go. Sat down with his family, sat down with my wife, and having those kind of conversations. But really, it'd be hard for me to walk away from this game with how old I am. In his case, how young he is. I always, with my son, I always dreamed of playing as long as I could, to where my son knew exactly what he was watching his dad do. It's my health, it's my body. I feel like this is what's best for me and my family. I love the game of football. If I didn't, I would have quit a long time ago. Now, Tua is saying right here, like, I got a young son. I at least want to play long enough where my son can look at the TV and have the awareness and the cognitive understanding that that is my father. And probably, if he's honest with himself, he wants him to probably understand even a little more with maturity that that is a very rare position that my dad is in. Because as a father, I know that every dad wants their kid to be proud of them. It doesn't, I know, some people might try to put up a front, but at the end of the day, Tua wanting to, risk his health. And I mean, that's what it is. Not just Tua, but obviously everybody in the NFL that goes out on Sundays risking their health. But Tua even more so because of what has happened. Look, you're not going to give him any reason more than his reason to not play. There's nothing that you could put on that balance beam for Tua. If this is the way he looks at it, then that's what it's going to be. I'm sure his family said it doesn't matter if he can see you on the field, if for the rest of your life you can't have a conversation with him. I mean, Tua, I'm sure somebody must have told him that, but you know what? He wants to play this game. He wants his son to know that his dad is a professional football player. And I don't know how old his kid is, but that probably means that he is looking to play for another, whatever, 5 to 10 years minimum. Ginger said, I was coaching my nephew today and had shorts on and had to teach sliding. I have the biggest raspberries going from my ankle to my knee that I've ever had. The sacrifice is real, man. I'm really high on his brother too. He made Ohio State's defense look really bad to us. Yes, sir. I want my daughter to be as proud as possible. And Ginger, man, you know. So I think yeah, and quick side note, and I don't know why I've always been a little embarrassed to say this, but between us and the entire internet, I've never figured out how to slide. It's like I don't know what it is. I feel like I have great coordination when it comes to throwing and catching, but whenever it comes to sliding, I just always do this awkward fall. Like it looks bad, it hurts worse. Like I watch on Sunday, these quarterbacks are kind of running and then they slide and they pop right up and they first down with the ball. It's like when I go to slide, I bend my knee in a weird spot, twist my ankle. It's like it's like not smooth at all. It's like it's worse than being tackled. It really is. Um, yeah, I don't know why I had to get that off my chest today. I can't slide, and I've always wanted to, and I feel like I'm hesitating, and I feel like that's not a very masculine thing to hesitate. but whatever. It's out there. I'll work on it. I'm going to find my way. the kids the kids are in our squad can't throw or catch. I'm in a hard spot. I played college basketball at the University of Southern Indiana. Ooh, and trying to teach these kids how to do anything is really hard. I didn't know that. I love ball. I would say football's number one, basketball is number two. And it's always been like that. There was a time where, me and my brother used to sit outside and shoot shots, and we'd say, if I make this shot, I'm going to be in the NBA. He was Tracy McGrady, I was Allen Iverson. We'd play one-on-one, and man, we would sit out there for 12 hours just shooting all day, just barefoot in the road, just playing. And then when it was football season, we just did football. But it was almost like the fever would switch. It would be like around playoff time, you get that basketball fever, and then you go a couple months, and then all of a sudden you miss football, and that was life for us. Very simple. If you know how to slide properly, it is easy peasy. Off the swim. I pulled off the swim move diving and went headfirst in college. It's literally just repetition and knowing your situation. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I know my situation is that every time I go to slide, I know it's going to end terribly. So I think I'm also probably psyching myself out. Um, yeah, we'll work on that on another episode. I'll take some videos and upload some shorts of me sliding. I'll put that helmet on for shits and giggles. All right, so this is also what Tua had his doctors and specialists told him as well. Tua said that his doctors and specialists told him that there's no evidence that he's at a greater risk for concussions or CTE in 2023 or beyond because he's had multiple concussions last season, which played in his decision to return to football. Now, I do feel like in a way, and this is a great example, okay? Now, this is not healthy. And you could look at it one or two ways. You could say, there's no way that is worse than cigarettes. Or you could say, there's no way that is good for you, right? You're saying two things and they're both true, but whatever one you say changes the tone that it's received, right? If I say, oh man, like I'm so glad I quit smoking. This is so much better than cigarettes. Like people are going to look at that in a positive note. But if I just walk around and I'm like, there's no way this is good for you. There's no way this is more healthy than not, in taking anything. That would also be true. It's about long-term studies. There's no long-term studies on this. And what kind of research is there that if you've had 5 concussions in one season, you're at a greater risk for CTE, which is something that is developed over time, right? So the doctors are right, but it's also one of those things where it's not been around long enough. We just figured out what CTE and all this stuff is just a little while ago. Of course, there's no long-term studies that if you had 3 concussions in one season, you're at a greater risk. But doesn't it kind of feel like it's obvious? Like the more your brain bounces off the walls of your head, in a shorter amount of time, the more at risk you are. Like isn't that how our entire bodies work? Like if you tear, the same muscle 3 times within 3 years, people will just be like, "Oh, yeah, it was done after that." I think it's one of those things where doctors, after watching the Derek Wolf was on Joe Rogan, and he talked about literally he was paralyzed from the waist down from getting his spine, hit in a weird way. And he was cleared on Wednesday to fly with the team to the game. So these team doctors are hired by the team owners, and the owners are hiring the doctors And here's the interview. I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. Hey, we make a lot more money when Tom Brady's on the field. We make a lot more money when our stars are on the field. So, is this something that is said between the owners? Probably. It probably is. I know this from what I'm hearing from all the players is that the team doctors do not have the best interest in the players. They have the best interest in the owners because they get their paycheck from the owners. They don't, receive a paycheck from the players. And I think that is the NFL is going to have to try to find a way to mitigate that. Maybe the owner shouldn't be allowed to hire their own team doctors. You know what I mean? I think that should be probably one of the solutions. You can't hire your own doctors, but you can spend as much as you want on them, but then a third party has to hire them. And I know they do have some of their concussion doctors are third party doctors, and they're trying to mitigate this kind of stuff. But I can't believe after hearing stories like, even this comment right here that why would a specialist tell you that? There's no greater, there's no evidence that you're at a greater risk for CTE or concussions because you had multiple last season. It's just one of those things that just seems obvious. It's like, and we're gonna get to the second one in a second here with Damar Hamlin, who died on the football field. Literally, this man lost his life on the football field, and the whole entire country like stopped, like one of those moments in history. I don't want to compare it to anything, but one of those moments in history where the whole entire world stops because of one thing is happening. And Damar Hamlin is at training camp working out with the Buffalo Bills. He's going to play this season. And it's like, of course, like, yeah, that's amazing, right? But I'm sure, like, it's like for us, we're worried, we're concerned. We feel, and I feel the same way about Tua. It's a very dangerous sport, and sometimes, you know, sometimes I feel like when life gives you a second chance, whether it was because the doctors were amazing, whatever the case is, right? It's like even people that love gambling, it's very important that you quit while you have the chips on the table. Don't sit around and wait because the chips eventually do go. The dealer eventually will win, and your luck will eventually run out. And it's not our life, so all we can do is sit back and commentate on this. But I think this is a great platform for me to be honest about how it makes me feel, because I'm sure there's people at home, a lot of people that feel the same way, where on one hand they're just really happy and excited to see Tua and Damar Hamlin like back out on that field doing what they love, because if you're doing what you love, your life will be very valuable and meaningful. But on the other side too, we're worried. We're worried. We want to say, no, man, just like quit while you're ahead. Get into sports media. The entire world knows who you are. You have so many platforms, so many things that you could do that don't involve, the potential. But you know what? At the same time, these guys could get injured driving their car to work. The elevator could, the suspension belt could break and crash. Anything can happen in life. And as you can see, I'm all over the place, but I think we all are, you know, this is this is how we all kind of think, where there's like three different sides to it and you're kind of like you're battling with yourself. But I think the world puts so much pressure on us to pick a side. It's like, no, pick a side. Are you with him or are you against him? And I just feel like most debates, most arguments, most deep meaningful subjects have a gray area where you kind of have to figure out what side you lean with most, and you may not even lean a side. And I kind of feel that way about this. You know, um, I'm just gonna. I would lean the way that I want them to do what makes them happy. Because I don't believe in suppressing, what people want to do. Like, I don't believe you can tell people what their greater good is. They have to decide that for themselves. But it is a little bit frightening to see. I'll say that. And Ginger said the kids these days are soft, low man. That's why I had to go out there and bleed for the squad. Tell them we are dogs. Do what you do, man. Screw everyone else's opinion. The fact that I had multiple concussions before the age of 15 is kind of scary to me for my future, to be honest. I smoke a lot of weed too, so that short term memory loss could be anything, I guess. They're actually more likely to get injured on their way to the job than actually on the job. Yeah, and that's the other point. Um, well, you think you're more likely to get into a car accident than get a concussion? I think I well, I like all we know is that in Tua's case, he has a higher chance of getting a concussion than any other quarterback that has ever played. Because now he has what, three or four concussions in 10 games. I mean, this guy's averaging like but then you could say, well, he got them all the way. You know what I mean? There's no chance that could happen ever again. Like the 49ers going through three quarterbacks. It's like they got Trey Lance. They're taking calls for Trey Lance, but at the same time, they might be the team that wants to keep Trey Lance, because if anybody knows how valuable a second and third string quarterback is, it would be the 49ers after the season they just went through. But which way do you look at it? Do you look at it like that happened last year? There's no way, that's impossible to happen again. Or is it like we learned our lesson last year to always be ready and keep three? It depends. I guess depends what the price tag is. Maybe somebody calls and they want to give a first and, a second for Trey Lance. I'm still Brock hard. I'm still Brock hard too. Maybe not in football. But almost every other profession, you are more likely to get hurt on your way to the job than at your job. Yeah. Yeah. And that's important to remind yourself too, because I know it probably also depends where you live too. I mean, I lived in a small town one time, and it just, even in the small towns, you'd see those flowers on the side of the road. Sometimes you'd see them in an area, during the day where you're looking around and you're like, how does somebody die here? It doesn't. There's no turn. Um, just freak accidents, man. We're driving these little machines 70, 60 miles an hour, and they're still doing studies to figure out what's most safe. They used to make these cars out of metal, and they were heavy. And then they found out that if the car is made out of metal, then the person inside takes most of they absorb the most pressure. Because if this goes still, then get the most pressure. But if they make the car out of aluminum and it scrunches and it crunches together, then the car takes the pressure and you take a limited amount of pressure. Now, that blew my mind, because I always thought that you'd be safer in a metal car. And if you showed one car that's been in an accident and it's, totally fine, and then the other cars like crunched up, I wouldn't think that there's, a good chance that the crunched up car had the healthy driver. Um, Said I live in a small town as well, and there are crosses and flowers everywhere on the highway, also at the railroads, stoppings. It's sad, man. Yeah, it is. It really is. Um, But yeah, with that said, everybody that is commuting and driving to work, stay safe out there. Wear your seatbelt. I'm not a I'm a seatbelt wearer now because my new vehicle, it beeps at me, like, not just the one warning beep, like it'll beep every 10 seconds. So now I'm a seatbelt wearer, and you guys should be wearing your seatbelt too. My mom always told me to wear mine. Now I'm finally wearing it, and it's the right move. So here's what I wanted to say about Trey Lance. I mentioned him a little bit. Said Trey Lance, the 49ers are receiving calls for Trey Lance. I mean, the 49ers, they moved up in the draft. They took Trey Lance at number 3. They gave a lot to get Trey Lance. Um, they at the time, you knew that the 49ers believed that Trey Lance was their guy. Like, especially you think John Lynch, great GM, Kyle Shanahan, great head coach. So there's something there with Trey Lance, but at the same time, it might not matter anymore because of Brock Purdy. And it's just crazy to think, how could these guys that get paid $100,000, 6 figures, to analyze the best quarterbacks, have Trey Lance at number 3 and Brock Purdy as the last quarterback in the entire draft? It's like Trey Lance has to be good, right? It seems like people's jobs should be on the line, because that's not like, oh, he was a first rounder and he slipped to the third round. Like, oh, no, no, this guy that was a third rounder actually should have been a first round. This is like, you told every team in the NFL not to draft Brock Purdy, and he turned out to be better than almost every quarterback that was drafted in that draft, with the exception of, let's see, Trevor Lawrence. Wasn't it Jacksonville won? Let's see. That was 2021 draft. Here we go. Number 1 was Trevor Lawrence. Number 2, Zach Wilson, bust. Number 3, Trey Lance. I don't know. Nobody knows. Let's see, who's the next quarterback taken? Justin Fields, which I wanted Justin Fields at number 9, and we drafted Patrick Surtain, which turned out to be a great pick, but I just couldn't believe that they were passing on Justin Fields. Like, when Justin Fields went down, when Carolina with the number 8 pick took J.C. Horn, I was like, oh my God, we're going to get Justin Fields. And then they're like, Patrick Surtain. And then Chicago moves up. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you guys getting a cornerback? We haven't had a quarterback since Manning retired. Literally, we've gone through 10 quarterbacks. And now, Justin Fields on the board and you go with Patrick Surtain. It's a great cornerback, but what the hell? Like, what were they thinking when they did that? Unless they already knew that they were going to go after Russell Wilson next year, because there's no way they could have known how bad Russell Wilson was going to be. But it just, why? I'll never, ever get the answer to that question, but I really hope somebody comes out with an explanation, because I love Patrick Surtain. He's my favorite player on that defense with Justin Simmons. And with that said, Justin Fields was available and you just passed up on him. And it wasn't like, oh, it was like, this isn't like when Patrick Mahomes was drafted. It's like nobody knew Patrick Mahomes. Like, Justin Fields was projected to go, potentially in the top 3. And he slid all the way to 9. And you go cornerback, it's unbelievable. But anyway, so all of these quarterbacks are taken. So you got Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence. Then you had the Mac Jones to New England, and then in the second round you had, let's see, no quarterback. Oh, you had one quarterback. Kyle Trask was taken at the last pick in the second round, and no quarterbacks taken in the third round, and no quarterbacks taken in the fourth round. No quarterbacks taken in the fifth round. And then we get to the sixth round. There's Seth Williams. Sam Ellinger. Sam Ellinger. Damn, I know Sam Ellinger. I didn't know that Indianapolis drafted him in the sixth round. I did not know that. And then you get to the seventh round, and geez, you know what? I'm an idiot. Anyway, there's about 7 or 8 quarterbacks that were taken in 2021. It occurred to me while I'm doing this that Purdy was taken in the 2022 draft. So the quarterbacks that were taken over him, and last year was not a good quarterback draft, by the way. It was not a solid quarterback. We didn't even have a quarterback taken until Kenny Pickett. And Kenny Pickett was the only one in the first round. And then, geez, there was no quarterbacks taken in the second round. No quarterbacks taken in the third round. No quarterbacks taken in the fourth round. Geez, was there one quarterback? Oh, here we go. Sam Howell, Washington. And we've gotten to see him play already. He was taken in the fifth round, Sam Howell. And no quarterbacks taken in the sixth round. And then Brock Purdy taken in the seventh round. Skylar Thompson. We saw this guy got picked in the seventh round. And we saw Skylar Thompson. He was the quarterback that played for the Dolphins in that playoff game. So, I guess I don't know, give a pass that it was such a weak quarterback draft. Chris Oladokun from Pittsburgh Steelers got drafted in the seventh round. I didn't even know about this quarterback. Man, I would say last year might be the worst quarterback draft class ever. If Brock Purdy didn't work out, I mean, Kenny Pickett's but he's nothing to write home about. Jinja said, oh shit. He said, I think the Shanahan conference had a lot to do with Brock's success, though. They're kind of a match made in heaven offenses. I don't know what the odds are on Denver winning the division, but I'm putting 10 on it. The Kings, or 25,000 to win their division. They did it, so anything's possible. Plus, the Broncos aren't bad. I know Sam, he's a dog. He's dog poo. The Broncos are 25 plus 25,000 to win their division on DraftKings. Is that real life right now? That is insane. If they are 25,000, oh my gosh. It means, what is that? $10 would win you like 200,000. Malik was taken in the second or third for sure by Tennessee. The Kings were. Oh, okay. I thought you meant DraftKings, so I don't care if it's plus 500. I'm taking Denver. Yeah, I mean, I think Denver could be really good next year because Kansas City had a really bad defense, and they just kind of. It just seems like even when you have Patrick Mahomes, there's going to be There's going to be seasons where um, everybody else isn't great. Okay, so let's say the rest of the league is, let's say the best teams are operating here, but there's years where there's a lot of great football teams, and it's like here. But when you have Patrick Mahomes, it's like anytime the rest of the league operates at a 7 or 8, Kansas City will be there to collect their Super Bowl ring. And I think Philadelphia was operating really high, but with the injury that happened to Brock Purdy, it just kind of felt like, yeah, the Bengals could have played a better game. The Jaguars could have caught those balls and not fumbled on the goal line. A lot of teams were just beating themselves, and Kansas City was just kind of, these are the years that they're going to take the Super Bowl. We saw New England do that for the longest time. Think about that game against the Rams. It was like Tom Brady won another Super Bowl. No one even cared. It was just kind of felt like the other teams were worse than the Patriots. But it didn't feel like the Patriots were like, you know, oh my God, they were so good. They were clearly the Super Bowl champions. I still think that Eagles team right now, if they had to have a rematch, I'm taking the Eagles. I thought the Eagles were the better team, and I'm still kind of shocked that Kansas City found a way to win that game. Um, I just I don't think if they played again that it would go that way. Denver will be good this year. I'm calling it now. I'm hoping. I say all that to say Kansas City had a bad defense. They were not this great team, even though they won the Super Bowl. It just worked. Whatever they were doing, it worked, but it's not an unbeatable formula. I would say that the Eagles are kind of unbeatable. When you think about the way they operate, that QB sneak with the two people that push it, that offensive line, clearly the nastiest offensive line and defensive line. And then Jalen Hurts is all business. Like Jalen Hurts is what a quarterback is supposed to be. It's like you don't always know how to explain it, but you know it when you see it. Jalen Hurts, that's what I would explain to people what a franchise quarterback should be. Um, yeah, I think they're going to be good again, the Eagles, but I think Denver can win the division. I don't think the Raiders are going to be great with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't think uh, what's his name, Josh McDaniels is going to be a great coach. And who knows about the Chargers because um, they're sticking with their head coach. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Anytime you give up 27-point lead, in the second half of a playoff game, Bruce Staley or yeah, Brian Staley. Let me get that first name right. Staley. Brandon Staley. Anytime you give up 27-point lead, like it's amazing that that guy got to keep his job. I would say the AFC West is up for grabs. And I mean, it's easy to say, but let's be real. Like, we haven't beaten the Chiefs in 6 years straight. So, whenever you have the best quarterback and the best tight end in the league and add extra weapons along with your pass rush, and I'm not surprised Kansas City beat them in the least bit. Washington had a better defensive lineman than Philly, and they did. Really? I thought I would say the Eagles had a better defensive lineman. The Eagles were the only team that had their what was it 4 different defensive linemen with 10 plus sacks, which means everybody was eating. They were the only team that had their entire D line had more than 10 sacks. It's insane. But look, the Commanders are good in their own right, but they also Chase Young didn't even come back in till like late in the season, and then he was on a snap count because they didn't trust to throw him really back out there. I think the Commanders got a solid defense when they're healthy, but I would say last season was the Eagles. Lineman, yeah, defensive lineman Philly. Yeah, I know what you mean. I gotta give my crown to the Eagles, but I think that's a good second place. A lot of people don't give the Commanders all the credit they're due because they haven't won and their uniforms are ugly, whatever the case is. But just look how far the NFC East has gone. Like Dallas is always overrated, but they're finally proving that, they can at least make it to the playoffs and win a playoff game. I mean, yeah, they beat the worst team in the playoffs, uh, which was Tampa, but maybe that's the kind of game they needed to shake off the rust. Now Dak's been to the playoffs, kind of knows what it's like, the feeling. Um, maybe not has been to the playoffs, but now he's won a playoff game. So maybe next time, he's a little bit better. You got the Giants, won a playoff game, beat Minnesota. Look, I think Minnesota's going to digress. You can't win 12 close games and expect to, win 12 games next year. Minnesota's going to take a step back for sure. I would bet you $10 right now that Washington will have a better front four than Philadelphia next year. And what do we base it off though? Do we base it off sacks? Is it strictly based off the amount of sacks that the Commanders have? But it can't. What if it's an edge rusher? It has to be only a defensive interior lineman. So only those four dudes, or it could be. We'll count rotational. So if somebody gets hurt on the line, so depth is going to be important. I would say death is death. No, not death. Depth. I'm gonna smoke this and die. No, not death. Death. You smoke this and you can't hear shit. I got shit to do today. Your kids be screaming, "Daddy!" Oh, Cat Williams. It's got to be probably, I would say, it's in my top 5 stand-ups of all time. Got to throw Bernie Mac in there too. Bernie Mac's definitely on the list. My dad just went and saw Adam Sandler in South Florida. I say just. It was I don't know, it was like what, 5 months ago now? And he said that they left in the middle of it. They were like the openers were funnier than Adam Sandler. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "No, I know what you're thinking. We bought the tickets to see Adam Sandler." What's his name that's in all of his movie? Rob Schneider. He was like, he was there. He was like, everybody was funny, but Adam Sandler was like, it was bad. And I was like, that is mind blowing. Because Adam Sandler is like the goat of mediocre, films. I personally love them, but I know a lot of movie buffs are like, no, it needs to win, it needs to win an Oscar. It's got to have Best Picture. It's like, can't you just chill? Can't you just respect Big Daddy and Click for what they are? Um, what's that other one? Good luck, good luck, Chuck. Um, the one where he has to marry his best friend, who his best friend is Kevin Bacon in that movie, who has a stand up on Netflix that I watched last night. And Kevin Bacon actually had me laughing hard. He did this little skit where he was like, when you're so eager to get out of the elevator and you get out of the elevator and you see that it's on the wrong floor and you can't turn around because, you're embarrassed. So you just keep walking and you're just like, no, it's okay. This is where I wanted to go. And then he's like, they're like holding the door. They're like, it's okay, man. You can come back in. He's like, no, no, no. I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to go over here. He's like, then the elevator closes and you hit the button and it opens and it's still them in there. It was literally, I was like belly laughing at that whole scene, probably because I've been in that same scenario. Uh, He said, as if Darren Payne isn't as good as Darren Darren Payne isn't as good as anyone Philadelphia has in the interior. Death. I ate all my kids' cereal. Classic cat. Oh, oh no, them damn insurgents have come in our house again. He's like, now you embarrassed. You got to play it off. You're looking up. Oh. It's like, there's nothing worse than being too high, cleaning shit that doesn't need to be cleaned. It's just all so relatable. It's all so relatable. I think I'm gonna watch that one soon. It's been a good couple years. Um, not death. um, so anyway, huge digression, but the 49ers receiving trade calls. Are teams actually calling, or is this one of those things where the 49ers because look, it's as simple as this. Kyle Shanahan goes up to the reporter that works for the 49ers and says, "Hey, just so you guys know, we've been receiving calls for Trey Lance. Mind you, maybe nobody's called, but that story gets put out and now the whole world talks about it. It's a big item here on NFL.com. That's why we're talking about it. And maybe a team that is interested in Trey Lance will now be calling San Francisco. And we see owners do stuff like this is, a lot of the stuff that gets leaked is really just it's like the year before Russ got traded, it got leaked. Denver, New Orleans, and Chicago, where one of the destinations he would want to play. It didn't get leaked. Russell Wilson told his agent to leak it, and he did. So, and by the way, Russell Wilson, he wanted that leaked. New Orleans part of it leaked because he wanted to play with Sean Payton. Now Sean Payton's in Denver. So Russell finally is going to get what he wants. I hope he enjoys it because Russell is going to get Sean. You wanted Sean, you're going to get Sean. It's not Kevin Bacon. It's the Kevin from King of Queens. Wait, what? No, it's Kevin Bacon from Good Luck Chuck. Good Luck Charlie? Good Luck Chuck. Oh no, not Good Luck Chuck. Not Good Luck Chuck. What's the movie where Adam Sandler has to marry his best friend? Adam Sandler marries best friend. It's called I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. Kevin James, you're right. No way. This is not the same guy? This is totally the same guy I watched last night. But it said Kevin Bacon. Now, who the hell's Kevin Bacon? Oh, that's Kevin Bacon. Oh, okay. Okay, so I didn't watch. I don't know. His name came up. I must have been watching a movie with him in it. So I am talking about um what's his real name now? Kevin James, the guy from Hitch. So Kevin James has a stand up on Netflix that I just watched, and it's freaking hilarious. Thank you, Ginger. Just remembered, LOL, with some Jessica Biel and her sexiness. That was yeah. That movie is fantastic. But some people just don't like Adam Sandler movies. I do. They're good. Yeah, Jessica Biel plays Alex McDonald. She's the lawyer in that movie. Um, but yeah, great sidebar there. So, are people really calling for Trey Lance? Do the 49ers just want to put it out there so they can try to get something moving before the draft, maybe get some more capital? I think that's probably what's going on here. because look, every team has already solved their quarterback problem. Tampa is deciding to go with um, what's his name? Uh, gosh, I'm so bad with it. Baker Mayfield, and then you got Houston, um, and Indianapolis and Carolina going all for the draft. I mean, Seattle maybe if they wanted to get him behind Geno for the next 2 years, but I don't know, man. It just seems weird. It seems like if anybody would have called for Trey Lance, it would have been it would have been Tampa Bay, I thought. So I think this is a little bit of inside the building leaking this to see what they can get. No news on Lamar Jackson. Not sure what's going to happen with him. I really don't, but it'll be interesting to see if if somebody blinks. They're both just staring at each other, but someone's going to have to blink at some point, and we'll see how that whole thing unfolds. And then also, I do want to mention I've seen a couple mock drafts where Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas, is projected to go to the Eagles. And I just wanted to say, could you imagine that team adding Bijan Robinson? Now, Maurice Jones-Drew did an article where he released his top running backs, top 5 running backs in the draft, and he actually has uh, Jameer Gibbs from Alabama at number 1, not Bijan Robinson. He said this is what Maurice Jones-Drew said, many view Texas's Bijan Robinson as the top running back in this class, but Gibbs is my choice. The Alabama product is a 3-down back with a lot of upside. With his play often compared to New Orleans' Alvin Kamara, Gibbs is all about speed, evidenced by his 4.36-second 40-yard dash at the scouting combine. But he also possesses great start-stop quickness. He's extremely elusive in the open field as a receiver. Gibbs is the mismatch with soft hands and solid route running ability. He's the type of player who can fit into any system and make any NFL offense better. And then Bijan Robinson at number 2, saying after amassing the 6th most rushing yards and tying for the 5th most rushing touchdowns in FBS last season, Robinson was named the 2022 Doak Walker Award winner as college football's top running back. With all the tools to be a 3-down threat, Robinson should be an uber productive player from the jump with his strong and elusive running style and run after catch ability. He makes big time plays look effortlessly as a shifty, do it all talent and will immediately impact whichever NFL team drafts him later this month. And I won't read the articles on the rest, but I'll mention their names. UCLA's Zach Charbonnet, number 3. Deuce Vaughn at number 4 from Kansas State. Devon Achane, Texas A&M. I did a little article on Devon Achane. He ran, I believe that he was the fastest 40-yard dash at the combine. He blazed a 4.32, but he's not just fast. He makes sharp cuts. Devon Achane, he actually, look at his highlight film. It's pretty impressive. Tyjae Spears out of Tulane. Kenny McNosh, McLntosh. McNosh, I'm going to assume. Kendre Miller, number 8. Kenton Mitchell, number 9. And Roscoe Johnson. He split carries with Bijan Robinson at Texas. Damn, that's a pretty damn good duo. So hopefully, I think it would be really good. Could you imagine if Indianapolis had Jonathan Taylor and, obviously they're not going to get one of these top 5, but maybe in the second round they could get another sick back and have have one of those Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb. Who's he sharing? Oh my gosh. My brain today. Kareem Hunt. I didn't even have to type it out. You could have a dual threat like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That would be insane. There's no way Gibbs will be better than Robinson. Robinson's more like a McCaffrey type of dude that can play receiver or running back. That is invaluable. Yeah. And then Ginger said, I hope the Colts get Stroud. Please, God. And it'll be interesting. If the Colts, I think what I've heard is the Texans, who are picking number 2, don't want they may not want, this would be a stupid reason, but they may not want CJ Stroud because CJ Stroud's agent is the same agent that was Deshaun Watson's agent. So I don't know. I don't know what that's worth, but that kind of tells me whatever happens, I think if you really want CJ Stroud, you're going to have to jump Houston because Carolina is going to take either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. Okay, so that means Houston is going to take whoever's left over. You guys got to get to that number 2 spot. And Houston is in a rebuild. I think Houston would be interested in moving to 4 and getting a lot of weapons. But at the same time, man, I don't know. They got a new head coach. They're trying to change the culture and give the fans something to be excited about. And nothing really gets you excited like a brand new franchise quarterback. I think Indy's going to get screwed again. I think what Indy should do is just make a huge trade for Lamar Jackson and become the Baltimore Colts again. And then it'll be like Lamar never left. There's no way Gibbs. Oh, I read that one already. So that's what I think. For what it's worth. Hey, man, at least your team actually gets to have a pick in the first round. My team doesn't even have a draft pick in the first or second round. Literally, I have to wait until pick, I believe, 75 or no, 68. Denver doesn't get a pick till 68. We'll be in the third round. Isn't that a load of shit? He said, I like them. These Sandler's old movies were awesome. The Wrong Missy with David Spade, also hilarious. I haven't seen that one. I haven't seen The Wrong Missy. I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch it now because that's what I got for Only Football today. Tomorrow is a travel day for me, so I'm gonna have a different background and everything like that. And I'm going across the entire country. So let's see. I'm probably gonna be in Florida. So the time zone will be plus 3 hours. So I might be on for what you guys are used to. I might be on a little early tomorrow compared to what we're used to because I'll be on East Coast time. So different background, different studio probably. But same mic, same computers, and same Kyle. So that's all I got for today. Thank you, Ginge, for tuning in. We are almost there. Next Thursday, we're going to be bringing you live footage from the NFL draft. I'm super stoked about that. I'm going to be on top of the draft like white on rice, unless you like brown rice. And in that case, you're a serial killer. If you guys want to follow us, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, like it, share it. Follow me on Twitter at FTBLONLYPODCAST, Football Only Podcast. And you can follow my partner in crime at And Now Rick, ANDNANOWRICK. And yeah, go ahead, follow us on Twitter so you can enjoy the sports NFL jargon back and forth that we do, tagging each other and whatnot. And until then, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Jinja, have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. And Bill, everybody else, whenever you see this, go ahead and throw what you think in the comments about anything that we discussed today. Love to hear your opinions about everything. But until tomorrow, go Broncos. Have a good night. See ya.